Two people start the same habit, same goal, same motivation, same YouTube video that inspired them. One of them quits in 3 weeks, the other one is still going 6 months later. Not because they're more motivated, not because they have more willpower, because they learned when to stop. I'm not going to give you a productivity hack today. I'm not going to tell you to wake up earlier or build a streak or download another app. I'm going to show you something that's been destroying your habits before they even had a chance to survive. Something so obvious you've never once questioned it. And the moment you see it, really see it, the way you approach every habit, every goal, every creative project will never be the same. You've been taught your whole life that more effort means more results. Push harder, go longer, no days off. And so every time you sit down to build a habit, you do exactly that. You push. You go until you're empty. You give everything you have. And then tomorrow comes, and something is different. The thing you were excited about yesterday feels heavy today. You don't want to open the notebook. You don't want to lace up the shoes. You can't explain it. Nothing bad happened. You didn't fail. You actually did really well. But somewhere between last night and this morning, the motivation quietly disappeared. That's not weakness. That's not laziness. That's not who you are. That's what happens when you cross the peak. You know someone like this. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's someone you follow online. They start something new and they go absolutely all in. New gym routine. They're there every single day. 2 hours a session, posting about it, telling everyone. New business idea that they're working on it until midnight, weekends, every spare minute. New reading habit. A book a week. Notes, highlights, the whole thing. And for a few weeks, you're genuinely impressed. Then they disappear. The gym posts stop. The business idea gets quietly shelved. The books pile up unread on the nightstand. And when you ask them about it, they say the same thing every time. I just lost motivation. Life got busy. It wasn't the right time. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you think, why does this keep happening to them? But here's the question you're not ready for. When was the last time you started something with everything you had, and it survived past the first month? When was the last time a habit you built in a moment of high motivation was still standing 6 months later? Because here's what nobody tells you about motivation. That burning feeling you get when you start something new, that's not fuel. That's a spark. And if you pour everything into a spark, you don't get a fire. You get ash. The people who stay consistent, the ones who show up for years, not weeks, they don't have more motivation than you. They're not more disciplined. They haven't unlocked some secret level of willpower you don't have access to. They just never let themselves hit empty. Think about the last habit you quit. Not the ones you never started. The ones you actually began. The ones you were genuinely excited about. Go back to that moment, 2 or 3 weeks in, right before it fell apart. What happened the session before you stopped? I'll tell you what happened. You had a great session, maybe your best one yet. You were in the zone. Everything was clicking, and instead of stopping, you kept going. You pushed past the point where it felt good because stopping felt wrong. Stopping felt like leaving something on the table. So you stayed. You gave more. You finished completely empty, and you told yourself that was a good thing. It wasn't. That was the session that killed the habit, not the day you quit. That came later. The damage was done the day you crossed the peak and kept going. The day you turned something you loved into something that exhausted you. And the next morning, without even realizing it, your brain had already filed that habit under one word: dread. In 1935, a journalist asked Ernest Hemingway how he wrote every day without ever getting stuck, without ever staring at a blank page, without ever losing the thread. And Hemingway said something that had nothing to do with writing. He said he always stopped when he knew what came next, not when he ran out of ideas, not when the chapter was finished, not when he hit a natural stopping point. He stopped in the middle, mid-scene, mid-paragraph, sometimes mid-sentence, while the words were still flowing, while he still had more to give. And everyone who heard that thought, that's strange. Why would you stop when it's going well? Because that's exactly the point. When you stop in the middle of something that's working, something interesting happens in your brain. It doesn't close the file. It doesn't mark the task as done and move on. It keeps it open, running in the background. Your brain sits with the unfinished thing, turning it over, thinking about it, preparing for the next session without you even asking it to. Psychologists have a name for this: the Zeigarnik Effect. The tendency of the human mind to remember and fixate on unfinished tasks, far more than completed ones. Your brain is wired to pull you back toward things that aren't done yet. It's why you can't stop thinking about a conversation that ended badly. Why a song with a missing note bothers you more than one you've never heard. Why a cliffhanger at the end of an episode makes you watch the next one at midnight when you swore you'd sleep early. Your brain doesn't like open loops. It wants to close them. And when you stop at the peak, when you stop while you're still in flow, still energized, still wanting more, you leave the loop open. You plant a seed of unfinished business in your own mind. And the next time you sit down to work, your brain isn't starting from zero. It's already warm, already leaning forward, already pulling you toward the thing you left unfinished. That's not motivation. That's engineering. Now compare that to what most people do. They push past the peak. They go until the session is completely finished, completely empty, nothing left. The loop closes. The task gets filed away as done, and as exhausting. And the next time they think about sitting down to do it again, their brain doesn't lean forward. It pulls back. Not because they're lazy, because they trained it to associate that habit with depletion, with the feeling of empty. And the brain, very reasonably, would like to avoid that feeling again. This is why your mornings feel heavy. This is why you have to negotiate with yourself just to open the laptop. This is why lacing up the shoes feels harder than the entire workout. The resistance isn't at the start of the habit. The resistance was built at the end of the last session, when you crossed the peak and kept going. You didn't lose motivation overnight, you spent it. Same gym, 2 people. One finishes every session completely empty, pushes past the burn, past the point of good form, past the point of enjoyment. Leaves everything on the floor every single time. Feels proud of that. Wears it like a badge. The other stops before they hit the wall. Still has a rep or 2 left in them. Still feels good. Walks out of the gym thinking, I could have done more. 3 months later, one of them is still going. It's not the one you think. Same journal, 2 people. One writes until the page is full, until every thought is extracted, until there's nothing left to say. Messes the journal feeling drained and slightly relieved it's over. The other stops mid-thought, puts the pen down while the ideas are still coming. Closes the journal with something unfinished, something still alive on the page. The next morning, one of them can't wait to open it. Same meditation practice, 2 people. One sits for the full 30 minutes no matter what. Pushes through restlessness, through boredom, through the desperate urge to stop. Finishes feeling like they survived something. The other sits for 15 minutes and stops while it still feels good. While the stillness is real, not forced. One of them builds a 10-year practice. Same creative project, 2 people. One works until inspiration runs dry, until the screen blurs and the ideas stop and the whole thing feels impossible. Closes the laptop defeated, already dreading tomorrow's session. The other stops at the peak of the creative flow, right when it's going well, right when they could keep going. Shuts the laptop thinking, I know exactly what I'm doing tomorrow. Same book, same goal, same starting motivation. One person reads until their eyes are heavy and the words stop making sense. Falls asleep mid-chapter, bookmark shoved in somewhere, vague feeling of having forced it. The other stops at the end of an interesting section, before they're tired, while they're still curious about what comes next. One of them is still reading 6 weeks later. This is not about doing less. This is not about being easy on yourself or lowering your standards, or settling for mediocre sessions. This is about understanding something that every long-term performer, every writer, athlete, artist, scientist who has sustained their practice for years understands intuitively. The session you're in right now is not the point. The point is whether you come back tomorrow, and the day after that, and the year after that. The single session means nothing without the 10,000 that follow it. And every single one of those future sessions depends on one decision you make today. Do you stop at the peak, or do you cross it? So what does this actually look like? It's simpler than you think. And that simplicity is going to bother you at first because your brain has been trained to believe that hard things require complicated solutions. They don't. This one requires one rule. Always stop while you still want to continue. Not when you're tired, not when the session feels complete, not when you've hit some arbitrary time limit. Stop at the moment when you're still in it. Still energized, still flowing, still thinking this is good. That moment, the one where stopping feels slightly wrong, slightly too early, slightly like you're leaving something behind. That's the peak. That's where you stop. Every time. It will feel uncomfortable at first. It will feel like quitting, like you're not working hard enough, like everyone else is pushing further and you're pulling back. Your brain will tell you that you're being lazy, that one more rep won't hurt, that you should finish the chapter, that you should stay until the idea is complete. Don't listen to it. Because that voice, the one that says keep going, that voice has never once helped you build a habit that lasted. It's the voice that emptied every tank you've ever filled. It's the voice that turned every fresh start into another thing you quit. The rule is simple, but there are 3 things that make it work. First, before you begin every session, decide when you're going to stop. Not based on how you feel in the moment, because in the moment you'll always feel like you should keep going. Decide before you start. Set the boundary when your judgment is clear, not when you're deep in the flow and your brain is telling you more, more, more. Second, when you stop, write down exactly where you are. Not a summary, not a reflection. The raw next step, the next sentence, the next exercise, the next idea. Make the re-entry frictionless. You're not just stopping, you're building a bridge to your future self. A bridge so short they can cross it half asleep. Third, protect the feeling you walk away with. That slight hunger, that sense of unfinished business, that pull toward tomorrow, that's not something to get rid of. That's the whole mechanism. Don't fill it with something else. Don't immediately open your phone and let the feed wash it away. Let it sit. Let your brain hold the open loop, because that loop is what brings you back. Tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, before you check the phone or open the news or let the day take over, you'll feel it. A small pull toward the thing you left unfinished yesterday. Not dread, not resistance. Just a quiet, almost unconscious leaning toward the work. That's the effortless return. That's what Hemingway knew. That's what every person who has ever sustained a creative practice, a fitness habit, a learning ritual, a daily discipline for years instead of weeks. That's what they figured out. Most of them by accident, through years of burning out and starting over. You don't have to figure it out by accident. The peak is not the end of the session. The peak is the signal. The signal that says, this is where you stop. This is where you plant the seed for tomorrow. This is where you choose consistency over intensity. Stop here. Come back tomorrow. And the day after that. Not because you have to, because you want to, because you left something unfinished, something alive, something waiting for you. And your brain, your perfectly wired, pattern-seeking, loop-closing brain, won't let you forget it. You thought the hard part was showing up. It was always the leaving.